With your host today, myself, Miss Louise Power. This show is about community matters, diversity and inclusion, a platform for women, leadership, entrepreneurship and inspirational stories. And today in the studio, I have communications expert, Mr. Andy West. Welcome to the show.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me. Do I tick any of the boxes you were just talking about?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I was just going through them thinking, what am I doing here?
Inspirational stories.
Oh, true. That's true.
Diversity and inclusion.
Absolutely. Big tick.
And there's, quite a lot of them. I say community matters.
Oh, community does matter a lot. I grew up in a place called Milton Keynes with no community. So, that's one of the reasons I love London.
So all of those things I say go together with you perfectly. And thank you ever so much, Andy, for joining me today. I know we've known each other for a while, but I'd really like it if you would introduce yourself to all of the listeners, please.
Yeah, very happily. Okay, my name is Andy West. I am... What do I say? Oh, gosh, I've had quite an interesting career. I started out as a journalist after university for local radio stations, and then ended up as a newsreader and reporter for BBC Radio 1, and then a producer on Radio 2 on current affairs programmes, and then became a BBC TV newsreader and reporter in Ireland. And after that, I kind of had a bit of a falling out with the BBC over an issue to do with LGBT stuff. Because they wanted to give an award to a guy who was, to my opinion, racist and homophobic and anti-women and anti-Semitic and everything else besides. And I ended up getting sacked. And I was in all the papers for it was. I didn't set out to cause a fuss.
You was just trying to stick up what was right. I guess
I just woke up a bit hungover one morning and stuck something up on my Facebook page, and then the next thing I knew, I was in the Daily Mirror and the Daily Mail and the Sun, and so there we are. And then I went from there to got a call one day from a guy who was a celebrity agent saying, "Would you like to go on Big Brother?" I've spoken to the producers and they actually think you'd be a really good housemate, which was such a weird call. And I said, well, yeah, I'm sure I won't get in, but yeah, whatever, have whatever conversations you want to have.
Right.
And then 3 months later, there I am walking into the Big Brother house thinking this is not real.
What an experience. It must be one of those deja vu moments where you see something on television and it kind of makes sense. But when you go in there, it's even more strange and
the weirdest thing about it was just exactly the same as it is on telly.
Yeah.
I thought there'd be, I don't know, things I didn't realize, things you don't see as a viewer, or it would feel much smaller or much bigger, or I don't know.
Yeah.
Or you'd hear people outside or something. But exactly what you saw on telly is exactly what I saw. The only difference was I was in it. And that was such a strange feeling. When I was on it, I think it was 2.5 million people watched it.
Did you enjoy it?
It was, no, not all the time.
Yeah.
No, I found it really, really difficult at the time. It was, it was really hard experience because you're in a house with 18 people and you're put in there not to like each other. They've deliberately chosen people you're going to not get on with. Oh, don't. There was a guy a couple of years before me he called himself Showbiz. And he was in there for about 2 weeks and he just walked around going, showbiz, about everything. He'd say, I'm going to have cornflakes, showbiz. And I was just waiting, for every time. I was the second person in and there were two twins who did gymnastics before with the first. And then I was watching people walk down these stairs thinking, okay, please, just no one who's going to literally make me want me to stick a fork in my own eye.
So your backstory is pretty much filled with a lot of media, television presence, and all things including...
I'm a reality TV star, Louise.
You're
Have you had a reality TV star on your show before?
I haven't, no. I've had another journalist and presenter, but you are the first.
That's why there's all the press out the front. Did you see?
You know what? When I was coming through, I could just about get to the front door. I was wondering what was going on. It was literally lights, camera, action all the way up the
Everyone was
stairs.
like, it must be Miley Cyrus. Robbie Williams is here. Liza Minnelli's turned up. No. It's that guy of Big Brother in 2016.
It's that Andy West.
It's that Andy West.
The one.
Yeah.
But no, actually, Andy, you're a great guy. We've been talking for a while, and I know there's some things that we've got so much in common. Some of the really important issues, some of the things that the social issues we're both really passionate about, and hence why we've been able to connect and click so easily. And you are a communications expert, so it would be really good for you to tell us a little bit about why communication is so important. What are some of the things that make communication at the forefront of what you do?
Well, I work in communications now. Sorry, I'm just communicating. I actually ran all the way here from the station, so I'm a bit out of breath. And, for a start on communication, I would say one tip: if you're about to cough, just tell everyone. Don't try and hide it.
Or if you cough in here like me, all I do is I just turn it down and turn it back up again. It's the reality, isn't it, what we're going through at the moment? We're all in this very ambiguous, strange time, aren't we?
Yeah, it's not like a COVID cough. It's just that I've been running cough.
You're a comedian as well.
Just be honest about it. Otherwise, you end up talking like that, and then everyone thinks something weird is happening. No, right? Yeah. So, I work in communications, and I mean, I call myself an expert just for the sake of this program, but I'm a communications expert only because I've been communicating in the media and elsewhere for, I don't know, approaching 20 years now. So, but it's not like I've got a degree in it. But what's important about communications? Well, that's obvious. If you work in PR or something, of course, communications are important. But it's important in everyday life. So many of our arguments and misunderstandings and things that hold us back in life from saying what we want, saying what we feel. You fancy your next door neighbor, but you can't tell them. You want the mango there, but they've given you the mango there. Whatever it might be, the thing that's on a day-to-day basis. You want to squeeze on the bus, but you think you'll probably tell you that you're not going to be allowed to. All of this comes down to body language and how you talk and how you present yourself. Communication is something that we are given as a gift as human beings, beyond any other known living species. And yet, even though we're so advanced, we're not very aware of it. We're not actually very good at it. If someone's got really bad breath, they won't, even though their mouth is right under their own nose, they won't be able to smell it. And I think we're just as bad at being able to see how we come across to other people and how we're taken in the way we communicate, the way we sit in front of each other, eye contact, and the way we use our voices. It's something that can really empower you. But if it's got wrong, it can do real harm to the way you're seen by your friends, your family, your colleagues, by strangers.
Yes.
And that will hold you back in life. We don't do, as far as I'm aware, unless things have changed. Certainly when I was at school, did you? I didn't do anything that helped me learn.
No, we didn't do anything around sort of communication. I think the closest thing that I'd done in terms of confidence and speaking out is drama.
Yes.
But so that would probably be the closest thing.
Yes.
But even so, that didn't even prepare me for things like public speaking and being able to have a voice without that imposter syndrome or without those things that tell me, how am I going to sound? How am I going to come across? What is it that the audience is going to think about me? And actually, I have to say that I'd done some sessions with you, didn't I, Andy, looking at the way that I can communicate, come across, finding my voice. What is it that I want to say? Using the best parts of me. And actually what I found for doing those sessions with you is that over time, every week I got that little bit more confidence, and that voice in my head just went.
It's not an instant fix, but you put your finger on it there. Absolutely. It was about the voice in your head. And more often than not, when I'm doing personal training with people, helping them with their voices and the way they present themselves in public, but also in interview situations and all sorts of walks of life, it all comes down to either an imposter syndrome or just a feeling of inadequacy or something, maybe your teacher told you had a funny lisp, or someone said something to you at some point that's embedded itself in your brain and made you self-conscious. Because toddlers, when they're learning to speak, aren't self-conscious about their voices because it's an exciting new thing they're able to do. If you see the look on a child's face the first time they say something and you understand what they're saying, that thrill we should not forget. But through life, we pick up our little foibles and our little concerns and insecurities. Yours, if you don't mind me saying, was a sense of nervousness and imposter syndrome.
Absolutely.
And what that was doing with you, interestingly, and I remember the first thing we did, was it was making you garble.
Yes.
You were doing two things. You were speaking very quickly. Now, I've run here, so I'm actually speaking relatively quickly myself. But we got you to slow down your speech. And we also gave you the gift of, do you remember? Exactly this, a pause.
Yes.
So it's the ability to give yourself time to think, because the brain is going to be filled with so many ideas, and also those self-doubts. You're going to be questioning what you say. And as soon as you're questioning what you say, your brain is suggesting lots of different things to come out of your mouth. And then you end up saying half of one and half of the other.
It was, honestly, the time that I spent with you was invaluable, because all of those inhibitions have left me. I no longer feel worried about pausing. I'm no longer overthinking what I needed to say. And it has been, yes, it's been a work in practice, but I have the confidence now not to have to worry about any of those things. And actually, it's made me a much better presenter, public speaker, you know, when I need to speak to people about business and be on stage. So I think that communication is something that, you know, is worth spending some time on, isn't it?
Yeah, and we don't do it. We rush the way we talk, and then we rush the rest of our lives, because life is pretty busy right now. You're always dashing from one place to the next, and giving yourself time to speak, not feeling like you have to get every thought in your head out there all at the same time, is a real breakthrough for people, because no successful politician in history, from Trump to Obama to Kennedy to Margaret Thatcher to Tony Blair, anyone you look at, watch videos of them speaking. And they'll actually speak in a lot of their public addresses much more slowly than I am now. And I tend to, and I did this with you, didn't I?
Yes.
It's about that tempo, roughly.
Yes.
And if you have something like that just in your background, and you hear as I'm talking now, I'm just starting to slow down a little bit and give myself time to think about what I'm going to say next. And then if I say something that I think needs energy, and it's really exciting, like the moment I got here and I was late for the studio, and then I want to express that in my voice, I have somewhere to go. So I can say, and then I got off the train, and then I was running down the road, and oh my gosh, it was really, really busy, and I couldn't get past this girl who was at the bus stop, and she was standing in the way, and there were these amazing smells, and the smells were everywhere of the curry being cooked on the road. And I got here just in time, didn't I? And we'd never met before, and it's so lovely to meet. So you have somewhere to go, because that's an exciting thing to say. Whereas if I'm describing something that's actually much more personal and deep, because you've got an amazing story, Louise, a personal story that you need to tell, but people are not going to be able to hear that story unless you give them time to listen to the words you're saying.
That's it. And there's something about the deserving chance, I think.
Oh, I like that. What's that?
Being able to say, I deserve people to be able to hear that story. And when you kind of say that to yourself, you know, you feel a sense of, there's a sense of worth there, because it's worth somebody else hearing that, right? Somebody else needs to hear that in order to be inspired, in order to change their life, change their thinking, give them hope, whatever it is, there's always somebody out there. So I think there's something about the deservingness, you know?
Well, I've gone into companies to work with staff who lack confidence. They might be, I don't know, minority ethnic staff. The last one I did was 3 young women actually who are working at a broadcasting outfit that was very kind of male machismo, and they were struggling to find their voice in meetings and on air and in various other ways. And it was just, yet again, it was another thing that I've seen so many times, where the people with the least to offer in a conversation were the people who were the best at communicating. And the people who actually had the best ideas and were the most interesting speakers were speaking like really, really quickly, and you couldn't really understand what they're saying, because they're having to try and fit it into whatever little window arrived. And then, oh, I'm really sorry for talking, and please forgive me for saying something, but I've got this really good idea. And no one was listening to them.
Yeah.
Because, and that's a two-way thing. I think it's unfair to suggest that if you're someone who struggles to get your point across, it's your fault because you're not speaking slowly enough, or you're not breathing well enough, or you're not using your intonation. That might well be part of it, but it's also more confident people's jobs to create the space to allow you to gain that confidence and not expect you to be the world's greatest talker the first time you have the table. And that comes back to, I mean, so what am I? Let's list it. I mean, I'm a fully fledged homosexual. Mm-hmm. I got my membership card for that when I was 16.
Fully fledged, yeah.
Fully fledged.
I like that one.
I got that badge sewed onto my arm when I was about 16. So I'm that. But other than that, so I'm white, Southern, I guess lower middle class, educated parents, cisgender. For listeners who don't know what that means you're not trans. So I'm basically a lot of things that would give me an automatic position of privilege in a meeting. Now, if I was sitting in a meeting with you, Louise, I might, I might be listened to automatically more than you.
Yeah. And I wanted to say, actually, that I had done an interview with Lawrence Lee recently. And that was really interesting because we spoke about that. And he was of the opinion, and he said, look, when people are automatically have that sense of privilege, they come across very, very confident, and inconsistency with people from marginalized backgrounds. So I said, why do you think that is? And he said, they're always told they're great. They're always told they're wonderful. So automatically they have that innate feeling within them, whereas people that come from more marginalized backgrounds have to find their voice in a very different way. But we're going to go in a commercial break now. We'll be right back, and we'll come back to communicate when we're back on the dial. Please do not touch that dial. You are locked into Revive FM 94.0 on the Power Hour.
This is Aisha. Her father died in an accident at a very young age. She lives with her mother and siblings. There are millions like Aisha who do not have access to the very basics of life, resulting in her and many others not being able to attend school. Through Minhaj Welfare Foundation, your charity is dedicated towards supporting the full needs of orphans and needy children around the world. Donate today. Call us now, 0300 3030 777, or visit us on minhajwelfare.org.
This is
Revive FM
94.0 with the latest news from around the world.
Here at Duncan Lewis Solicitors, we specialize in immigration and family law. We have a proven track record of successful applicants who we've helped secure permanent residency for. From spouse visas to seeking asylum, our expert advisors will assist you throughout the whole application process. We offer a free no obligation consultation, so call us now on 0208 432 3350. That's 0208 432 3350, or visit us at 298 Romford Road, London, E79HD.
Turkish Kitchen, the best Turkish food you'll ever taste. We only use the highest quality meat. Along with our mixed grill platters, we serve cold mezes, hot mezes, lahmacun, and a wide selection of fish options. To order for delivery or collection, call us now on 0208 507 8822. That's 0208 507 8822. Or visit us at 41 Ripple Road, Barking, ID11 7NT. We can also take group bookings and take care of all your party needs. The Turkish Kitchen, Barking.
We're facing the biggest health challenge of our generation, and we've shown that together we're stronger than ever. But to keep making a difference, we need to support each other. If you're a man and you've had coronavirus recently, then you might just have the antibodies to help save lives in your blood plasma. That's why we urgently need men to donate. Giving blood plasma is safe and easy. Be the difference. Search Donate Plasma or call 0300 123 2323 today.
The new NHS COVID-19 app immediately shows me the risk of coronavirus in my area, so I can warn Mel.
It lets me quickly check into venues with a QR scanner, so I can protect Alid.
It tells me fast if I've been in contact with other app users who have coronavirus, so I can alert Emma.
It helps me protect all my loved ones, even Auntie Sue. The more of us who get the app, the better we can control coronavirus. Protect your loved ones.
Get the NHS COVID-19 app.
Download now at Google Play or the App Store.
Revive FM
94.0 on the radio,
on your mobile,
and online.
Hello, good afternoon, and welcome back. You're locked into Revive FM 94.0 on the Power Hour with your host today, myself, Louise Power. Just to remind you, this show is about community matters, diversity and inclusion, a platform for women, leadership, entrepreneurship and inspirational stories. And on today's show in the studio, live and direct, I have communications expert, Mr. Andy West. Welcome back.
Oh, so it's good to be back. You need a jingle. Where's your where's your jingle?
I know. I'm going to create a jingle.
Yeah.
And put one on. So.
I'll do it for you for free outside. I do voice. I did the last voiceover I did was for a new album.
Yeah.
For a big band.
Oh, that would be awesome. Thank you.
I'm very good at saying out now.
Over and out. Well, we're not out just yet.
Out now. See?
Look at you. We are talking all things communication, right?
Yes.
And just before the break, we were speaking about the reasons why some people find it really easy to communicate and others might find it a little bit more difficult. And we went on to speak about privilege and why it is that some people who are raised amongst or feeling more privileged than others will have an innate way of communicating. And that brings me on to speak about how that privilege, right, can compromise things within diversity and inclusion.
Yes.
So what are your feelings around that, Andy, with regards to privilege? Because you were saying you hit some sweet spots just before the break.
Did I?
Oh, yes.
Easy.
You did.
Oh, okay. It's the first time I've done that with a lady for a while. Glad to hear it.
You hit some sweet spots when you spoke about privilege and you spoke about the reasons. And it would be really good if you can kind of give some examples yourself about in context of diversity and inclusion.
Yeah, so it's look, it's a very, very big subject, and we don't have time to really get into it, I think, in huge depth. I don't have lived experience of being a person of color, so I know what people have told me, and I know what I have seen and witnessed when I've been out with people who are not white British, that box that I tick on various forms. And I have seen the kind of looks, sometimes comments, particularly women, that I've seen they get. And I've dated a guy who's black, and some of the comments we got when we were just walking around the street and the looks that you get from people, I mean, mostly not hostile, but kind of curious or kind of nudge, nudge, wink, wink kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's as far as I go. What I can't pretend to have is a really deep lived experience of what that's like. The closest I get is as an openly gay guy, and some of the experiences I've had at work with homophobia, and it's been very real.
Yeah.
And it's really damaged my career at times, and it's been very difficult to deal with.
Yeah.
But I'm also aware that at the same time, even as an openly gay guy, I still don't have that innate prejudice when I'm walking around, going in shops, when I'm meeting people for the first time, when I'm sitting in meetings. I don't suffer the degrading discrimination that might be faced, I mean, by you as a woman of color.
Oh, yeah. I mean, as a woman of color, even as a little girl, I could feel the difference at school. In the 80s, I could feel the difference with the way that the teachers, I was the only black girl.
I was going to ask you now, so you were the only black kid in your class, were you?
I was the only black I was the only black girl in the class.
Right.
There were a few black boys in the class, but I was the only black girl. And I remember we had an Asian girl, my friend Davinda, and a Chinese girl. But at that time, I was the only black girl. And I remember the names that I was called, which I'd probably rather not say over air.
No.
But you can imagine the names that I was called. And I remember feeling quite isolated with certain groups of girls at school. And I think it probably would have maybe had more of an impact had my dad not sat me down and had some of these really strong conversations when I was quite young. But one of the things that I've been talking about lately, and as a gay man, I think that you'd really agree, in order to really pivot inclusion, what that really means, I think to really be able to pivot those feelings, I think having first-hand experience of exclusion gives you a bit more leverage to really understand what that means. There are lots of people leading at the moment in diversity and inclusion, but if you've had or you've been in a group of exclusion, I think you can really put yourself in that place.
You can. It's absolutely. And I think it strikes me when I work with a lot of people who are placed in huge multi-billion, if not multi-trillion-dollar companies, and their head of diversity inclusion walks out, and it's a cisgender white bloke who probably went to Oxford, and I'm like, oh, okay then.
Happens to me all the time in my.
Fair enough. There's not a lot of lived experience necessarily to draw from there, but I think that's part of a process. A lot of these positions haven't existed before, and they are starting now to be filled. But look, I think the only thing I would counsel about it is this. You said something about one of your previous guests and about, the white kids are told they're amazing from youth, and that's why they have this innate confidence. I'm not entirely sure I go with that, because that will be the case for some kids. But I also know a lot of white kids who are actually, come from very difficult backgrounds and are told that they're a piece of dirt from being a child. And yet they will still, as adults, have a certain degree of privilege from the point of view that strangers won't make judgments about them in the same way as they would their black best mate, right?
Yeah.
So even though they both come from the same background, you could argue that the black kid's going to have a harder time because of society's expectations. The black kid's going to get pulled over in the car more by the police. The black kid's going to be followed around the shop more, and so on and so on and so on. But that's not to be confused with the sense that the only people who ever have privilege in any circumstance, or the only people who are ever discriminatory in any circumstance, are white people. I'm a very strong believer that all human beings are capable of discrimination.
I agree.
And all human beings in certain situations have a certain sense of privilege. So you can look at someone very famous like Jamila Jamil, for instance, who is very open about the fact, I come from a background that's relatively very wealthy, and I have very educated parents. But I have a privilege and a discrimination to be aware of. Look, I think when I talk about this, and I'm no expert, right? This is just my opinion. I think we all have a responsibility for a happy, successful, healthy society to simply try and look at ourselves from the outside, ask ourselves what advantages we do have in situations.
Yes.
And not use that to abuse other people's opportunities. It's crazy to ask human beings not to use their best advantages in life, because of course we're going to.
Yeah.
But just what they need to do, and what I need to do always, is try and make sure that I'm giving space. And here I am waffling on, so I'm going to give you space.
Well, that was really interesting, actually, when you said about using things we're going to use things to an advantage, which I agree to a certain extent. But then I think about nepotism.
Oh,
and just how key that is in not giving other people opportunity, because the nepotism, nothing changes if nothing changes. And it's the chicken and the egg. And if the chicken and the egg are always getting hired, and it isn't always about colour, is it, Andy? It's about universities that people go to, networks of people. And actually it's about saying other people can come through these doors. Because sometimes the nepotism is so strong that, yes, use it to an advantage to a certain extent, but we have to try and break some of these cycles.
Oh, it's terrible. Have you benefited from nepotism, do you think, in your life?
I think I have. No, nepotism in the sense that of networks. Yes,
I would say that's networking, isn't it? Right?
Yeah.
That's not really nepotism.
Not really nepotism. No, that's me working and grafting and hustling real hard.
That's it.
Yeah.
No, that's it. It's the hustle, right?
It's the hustle.
There's a difference.
Yes.
Nepotism, I think, is advantage given, not won.
Yes.
If you get a leg up because of someone who's helped you out, because you've worked and met them and shown them how good you are,
right.
That's not nepotism.
Yes.
That's called networking. And there's a very, very important difference.
Yes.
So I can absolutely look you in the eye now and say that I have not had a leg up in my career through nepotism. My parents were teachers, and so they gave me the benefit of an education that was good. And that's great. And they gave me a sound roof over my head, and I didn't worry about food. I paid my own way through university. I worked 3 jobs, by the way. So, I was kind of pretty down the middle. So I have I had my advantage, but I also had some disadvantage. My parents divorced, and they were getting divorced when I was a teenager, and it did not go well. So there's lots of different things I could put up there. Yes. Nepotism, though, no. No one has ever helped me get a job because they're my best mate or because they're my family member. And I'm proud of that. But it really annoys me sometimes when I see people who are getting opportunities, not because they've proven themselves, but because they've been given it. But then I have to have a word with myself. I'm like, well, if your dad said to you, how would you like to get this job for 150K a year? It's yours. I wouldn't say no. Who would?
Never would I.
Who would? So it's all very well being, you can get bitter that way.
Yes.
I think the key is, and this is exactly what you do, and this is why I just love talking to you, and you always kind of pick me up when I'm in my head about stuff.
Yeah.
Is you just have to accept that that's part of the game.
Yes.
And trump it by being a networker and by being good at what you do.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think that, leads me on to the next kind of, sorry, here we go. Here's a ghost cough. So I'm cough.
That's right. No one noticed.
Yeah.
Seamless
clearing of the throat. So yeah, what I wanted to speak about is if people find themselves in these situations,
that cheeky smile, what?
Where they do get through the door, but they experience difficulty, perhaps from a boss, manager, somebody in the team, because of their differences. What do we say then? How can we speak to these people? Because we know it happens, right? We know that people are out there now and having difficulty because of difference. Actually, that's a nice line. Difficulty because of difference.
It happens everywhere.
Right?
Yeah.
And
all the time.
All the time. And we want to send a message to those people that your uniqueness is your strength.
You have to endure, I think, sometimes. And I say that, I feel awkward saying that because it sounds like I'm telling people to just put up with bad stuff.
Yes.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that realistically in work situations, you can't normally magically walk into a job and then walk into another one you like better within a month. You know, you have to a certain degree, endure the difficulty of a bad situation, but never lose sight of the fact that it's an unsatisfactory situation. And you can do enduring at the same time as improving and fighting. It's just to do It's just to do it in a clever way, right? You know, I've lost my job at the BBC in the past because I was effectively sort of a whistleblower in a way. I stood up and said I disagree, and so went through a suspension and decided to go, and so on and so forth. That's something that you might need to do sometimes in life. If you see absolute evidence that, my God, you're sorry, forgive me for anyone who's religious listening. If you're working with a boss who is absolutely demonstrably racist or sexist or homophobic or anti-Semitic or whatever, then you might need to action that up. And I'm never someone who would tell you not to, because I've done it myself.
Yes.
But if it's less obvious than that, and usually it is, it's like just a sense that your ideas are not being taken up in the way other people's are. You're not being asked for your opinion in meetings in the way that other people are. You're not invited out for lunch and other people are. Those little micro things.
Microaggressions.
Yeah, they're microaggressions, they're micro somethings. And they can make you really unhappy and uncomfortable at work, and they can make you less able to do your job. And then it becomes a downward cycle, because the boss is like, well, of course I don't work so much with that person because they're not achieving so much, right?
Yeah.
You've kind of played into that game. If as a boss, and I manage currently a team of 6 people, if you don't give people light and water, they don't grow, you know? And so you as an employee in that position, if you're not getting that support from your manager, you recognize it and you work out, what can I do? What can I do to make sure that I stay strong and relevant and have agency in this situation? And that's such a personal
Of course it is. And don't go at it alone. Seek counsel, speak to other people, because there's so many people that have had experiences and been able to deal with it, and in a way that has been beneficial to them, and they may be able to give you some advice as well.
That's difficult. I remember when I was at school, I was told if you're being bullied by a kid, then you have to tell a teacher.
Yeah.
Don't hit them back. And it's possibly controversial me saying this, but I told a teacher and I got bullied twice as bad. And then one day I just lost my temper and I was being hit and I hit back.
And it stopped.
And then I didn't get punched anymore. And it's not advice. If I had kids, I wouldn't give that advice.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be like, go out and hit them back necessarily. I don't know what my advice would be. Until you're a parent, you probably don't know. But I don't always believe that the best way to go, you can't always go to someone else in your company actually and feel safe and secure telling them what's happening, because you don't know what their relationship is with the boss and you don't know what their ulterior motive is. And that's how poisonous and toxic workplaces can be. I think the best thing is to rely on your own friend network and your family network. Yeah. Work out what you need to do, what your strengths are. And here's a clue, right? If you are being neglected or picked on by your boss at work because you are a minority in one way or another, it's almost definitely because they're threatened by that and threatened by your potential. And that's something you need to turn around in your head and say, okay, I'm not a victim here. I am being picked on because this person can see that I'm good.
I like it.
And so you focus on being good, and then you make yourself even better, and you get out as quickly as you can. You network, you talk to people, and in time, what you'll find, generally in my experience, is that you will build the network of allies and supporters in your workplace or beyond your workplace, so that you can either step above the person who's giving you issues, or you can go out and get a better job. But that doesn't make it any easier for you in the moment. It's horrible. It's bullying.
We're going to have to just take a pause, as in our first example of communication, and we'll be right back. You are locked into Revive FM 94.0 on the Power Hour. Just a short break, I'll be right back.
As winter approaches, here's a critical reminder of coronavirus symptoms from Dr. Gupta.
The main symptoms of coronavirus are a high temperature or a new continuous cough, or a sudden loss or change in your sense of smell or taste. If you have any of these, to protect yourself and others, it is critical you isolate at home, even if you don't feel too bad. And you must book a test immediately. Use the NHS COVID-19 app or go to gov.uk/coronavirus.
Stay alert, control the virus, save lives.
Thinking about selling or letting your home? With Maxwell Estates, you don't need to look any further. Well established with over 15 years of experience, Maxwell Estates are specialists in residential sales and lettings. We manage over 200 properties in and around Northwest London, keeping our landlords and tenants updated with all the latest laws and legislations. Based in Edgware, our experienced specialist negotiators always ensure we maximize the full potential of your property. Call us now on 0208 952 0808 for a free no-obligation quotation, or visit our website www.maxwellestates.co.uk for further information. Maxwell Estates, the name you can trust.
Here at Duncan Lewis Solicitors, we specialize in immigration and family law. We have a proven track record of successful applicants who we've helped secure permanent residency for. From spouse visas to seeking asylum, our expert advisors will assist you throughout the whole application process. We offer a free no obligation consultation, so call us now on 0208 432 3350. That's 0208 432 3350, or visit us at 298 Romford Road, London, E7 9HD.
Revive FM
94.0. On the radio.
on your mobile.
And online.
Welcome back. You are locked into Revive FM 94.0 on the Power Hour with your host today, myself, Louise Power, and my guest, communications expert, Mr. Andy West. We're back on air. Thank you for joining us. We're having such a great show. I'm really enjoying this conversation, and I don't want it to end. So we've been speaking about the first half, which was communication, and now we're talking about diversity and inclusion, and about the way that people may feel in their organizations and being the right fit. Actually, Andy, is there such a thing as the right fit? You know, I don't think there's such a thing as the right fit. I think that we're in an era and an age now where everybody deserves equality and deserves to be treated fairly, no matter where it is they come from, and deserve for the door to be open and to be welcomed. And I think that, you know, we need a few more people that take that seriously.
It's human nature, actually, no matter what kind of group you have together, they will tend to gravitate towards people who sound and look like them.
Yeah.
And that's the same the world over. It's been the same since time immemorial. There are loads of research papers you can read about it. We do gravitate towards people who look and sound like us. And that's going to be the same in the workplace. And that's why you have to make a definite effort towards diversity. It's not something you can say, oh, we've written a pamphlet and handed it out to staff. Now it's just going to happen automatically. Because we've all been to those training courses, and you spend a lovely couple of hours, don't you? You write your names up on the whiteboard and you say, hi, my name's Sandra, and I'm really pleased to be here. And you have a really good time. And you all
I love
kind
it. Sandra's my mum's name. She's probably laughing her head off. Well, when she
punch me if I call her Sandy.
She doesn't like Sandy so much.
Sandra.
She's definitely a Sandra person.
Well, we've all been on those training. We've all been on those training courses, though. Do you know what I mean? And they don't really get very far. You have to have a meaningful intention to diversify, and then once you do, I think it's better. One of the greatest things about where I work at the moment is we have people of different ethnicities, different ages, different socioeconomic backgrounds, different genders, you know, everything is all working together.
Yeah.
And interestingly,
and
for
long
me,
may it last.
Long may it last. And the interesting experience for me, actually, is for the first time in my life, I'm going into a meeting where what I've got to say is probably the least important in other people's minds, because I am a white, cisgender, not trans guy.
Right.
I go into a meeting and the people of color, trans, you know, non-binary or women, or, you know, all these groups are looking at me going, well, you're just another cis guy. Like, what have you got to say?
Because your group isn't as marginalized as it once was.
Well, actually, in a way, I am, and I'm not saying this in a way that I should get kind of special treatment, the opposite, but in a way, in that scenario, because I'm probably the least minority person there, I'm actually the odd one out, right?
Right.
So
That's what
you could argue that my agency in meetings is less, but I would say, yeah, and rightly so. That's the difference, right?
Right.
It's my agency in a meeting and my opinions is worth less because for a reason. Because I don't have the lived experience the other people do.
The lived experience. Well, talking about lived experience, as a presenter and as somebody that's hoping to go into more TV work, as a woman, as a Black woman, I'd like to know, how do I take my skills, abilities, career further? You know, I'd like to get some work on some mainstream channels, but I know it's something that can be quite difficult. I've always been a creative since I was a child, but my experiences and my colourful upbringing, so to speak, never afforded me those opportunities. And as part of my social mobility, social entrepreneurship, career aspirations, I've integrated these creative passions, as you can see, with the Power Hour and the things that I do with presenting into that. But I'd like to take a bit further, right?
Yeah, you should.
What are some of the things that myself and other people that look like me can do? Because we know that there are still barriers to be broken. I mean, the Loose Women was a wonderful example. And we celebrated that on LinkedIn. Thousands, I mean, people are still responding and trending my post. It's over 2,500. And we've got so many people still commenting. And we celebrated that because in its uniqueness, it wasn't just about the fact that we had 4 Black women on Loose Women. We had 4 creative, well-known Black women that had something to give and to offer. And people were saying, we don't just want this for Black History Month. We don't just want this because, you know, it's the time of the year where we kind of need to show that we are we're not doing a tick box exercise of some sort. No, it's something that I say, and I know a lot of people say, we want it to be so... No, we want it to be in such a place where it's not just normal, that we don't even recognize it anymore. It's no longer a thing anymore, right? Yeah. And these are some of the some of the things that are really, really important to me. And seeing that on the show was a moment to be remembered. And long may it last. And long may it be something where it's just what it is.
Well, the question now with that is, you know, carry on watching Loose Women over the next couple of months and ask yourself how many Black women guests and presenters they have on it, right?
Yeah.
And I would lay that down as a challenge, really, to them. And I'd be, you know, you can be quite straight up about that, because it's all very well doing it as a one-off. But there's got to be a legacy to it. Otherwise, what is it? It's just tokenism. And that's then suddenly something really positive. And you're right, it's a positive thing, becomes a negative because it's revealed to be a headline grabber. It's revealed to be something that people are going to celebrate on LinkedIn. Oh, and then we're back to the usual presenters.
Yeah. So far, so good. So far, so good. They've mixed it up and it's been very diverse.
There you are, you see. So it's ITV, actually, I've got to say, are pretty good these days at taking this stuff seriously and seeing change needs to happen and making it happen. The BBC, I think, is a little bit slower about it, but it has actually got much better representation now of different ethnic minorities on there.
I have a question. I was speaking to somebody else within the media industry, right? And they were saying that some producers are scared about getting somebody of colour in front of the camera because they're not sure if they might fluff it or what they will say? Are they confident? Are they skilled? Are they trained? Are the viewers going to like them? So we're talking about perception here. Whose perception? Are these some of the things that really do go on?
So if you want to get onto a TV program or a radio program, anyone who's listening, yourself, Louise, I know that you do. You have to accept that things work in a certain way because they work that way for a reason. It's an industry. So don't expect the machine to change the way it works for your benefit because you ain't important enough. I mean, unless you are very powerful or very famous, you know, you're always going to get booked on programs. But if you're not, if you're an intelligent, gorgeous, amazing, lovely person who should be on television, that's not necessarily enough.
Right.
Because the machine also needs to know that, yeah, you're going to be capable of not drying up live on camera. They need to know that you're going to be available, that you're going to be willing to a degree, play the game. A lot of broadcasting is playing a game, by the way. I mean, I worked in current affairs and I've done some panel stuff myself on Good Morning Britain and This Morning and various programs like that. There's a game element to it where you are expected to take a position on an issue and argue it out, even if that's not entirely what you think about that issue, right?
Have some gumption, so to speak.
Well, have some gumption, but also kind of let go of your principles. And that's why I don't really do it anymore, because I was being asked to express opinions on national television that I didn't really have.
Right.
And I got tired of taking the call, and you're put under a lot of pressure to say, oh yeah, I definitely think that, you know, dogs should be attached to helium balloons and flown off to Antarctica. Yeah, I totally think that. You know,
and it couldn't be further away
Janet
from what you actually
Porter
think.
was totally right to say that should happen to dogs. She didn't, by the way.
Yeah.
But, you know, you get called up by producers asking you to have the most crazy opinions you would never have in your life, but you have to believe them, otherwise you don't get booked. So anyway, understanding how the machine works is important. And then also understanding the people who make the bookings and what their needs are. So you've basically got a junior producer whose job it is to find the guests. They're under a great deal of pressure. They might be working overnight. They might have started working 4 o'clock in the morning. They've got presenters who are breathing down their neck, who will quite literally shout at them in meetings if they book bad guests or they don't like the guests that have been booked, as well as the editors and the sub-editor, producer, all of these other people. The person booking you, Louise, for that program is under a huge amount of pressure. And they know that if they get it a bit wrong, they might never be booked again.
Right.
They might be shouted at the very least. They might be crying in the toilet again. The pressure can be that much, genuinely, when you're tired and people are under stress. And then the program goes out, and let's just say they've booked me, and I don't say what they expect me to say, or I don't take the argument in the way I'm supposed to. I go home merrily in my Trident Niven car thinking I've done a great job. That person is then getting another shouting at in the meeting afterwards. You booked that person. They were rubbish. You told me they were going to say X and they said Y. So if you put yourself in that person's mindset, what do you need to tell them? When you first talk to them, Louise, what do they need to know from you?
They need to know that I can carry forward the message. You know, I'm capable. I'm confident. I can get in front of a camera. I'm not going to fluff it. I'm going to be able to either read the news or bring across the message that needs to be said. And I'm charismatic enough to hold an audience, you know. And I think those are the things that people need to know when they're booking you.
Comes right back to what we were saying at the start of your show, right?
You can communicate.
It's communication, right?
That's right.
It's things like eye contact. It's how you use your voice. It's how convincing and persuasive you are in what you say and how much they can trust you. Because human interaction is largely based on trust. Most of our interactions, really, there's an element of trust there. If I trust that booking you, you're going to say on air what you said to me on the phone and that you're not going to fluff and that you are able to kind of put across a personality and engage the audience, then I will book you. But equally, this is when it gets so hard because equally, Louise, if I've already if I've already booked someone else who's done it 3 times before and proven that they've done that and they're available, guess who I'm going to book?
You book the person that's done it before. But then how do other people that, you know, come from either disenfranchised communities or not, or haven't been to these wonderful television schools or in these networks, how do they then get these opportunities? And are these junior producers also diverse? Are these editors diverse? Are are the people making these decisions and the ones shouting, are they diverse? You know, do you understand what I mean?
You make a really good point, and actually increasingly so, but nowhere near enough. I mean, if you walked around the average production house newsroom at a network broadcaster, you would be struck immediately by the lack of black faces there.
Right. And we're speaking about networking earlier.
Yeah.
Okay. If I was the producer and somebody walked in and said, I need somebody who I can trust, that can look the camera in the eye, and that wouldn't fluff it, and they're going to be confident and they know what they're talking about. Can you get somebody here in 2 hours? I'd go, yes, I can. Now, the question to you is, why do you think I can?
Why do you personally, why do I think you can? Well, I imagine because you've networked and you know lots of great people.
That's the answer.
Yeah.
The answer is, I'm a black woman that's networked, and I know loads of great people.
Yeah.
And I know loads of great people from all ethnicities. And if a mainstream producer asked me if I could do it, I would be able to get a handful of people from all walks of life to be able to do that. And if if one of them happened to be a person of color, then so be it. But if you're the same people that, like you spoke about earlier, who are all similar and all similarly cultured and all speak the same and all
it'll be like Jack Fortescue Smythe
and all in the same.
I'll just call my mate Benji. He's just down the road. He can do it easy. It's no problem.
No problem at all. And all in the same network and all speaking in a particular way. Then of course, it's nothing changes if nothing changes.
Nothing changes if nothing changes. I absolutely agree. What responsibility do you have, though, as someone who wants to go on those programs? That's an interesting question, because there's no point. You have to give yourself the agency. I've heard so many times, and I've sat on panels where people have said, oh, but black people don't get booked on programs. And that is true. And that is a problem. And I think that broadcast companies are finally starting to change the way they go about things to make sure that they are bringing more diverse people onto their programs. But we also have to put ourselves in a place where we are able to be called, where we are known, where we are visible, and where we are ready. And you asked me how to do that. I mean, one way to do that is to do what you did, reach out to someone like me, and I can help you to be ready. And that's about taking pride in who you are and your own background. And because when I first met you, you were kind of taking some of that out of yourself. You weren't wearing your earrings. You weren't wearing the makeup you like to wear. You weren't dressing the way you wanted to dress because you felt like you needed to assimilate with probably a white norm, frankly.
Yeah.
And I was like, no. Don't
Be yourself.
do that.
Be yourself.
You've got to learn to, in a way, to put it really bluntly, you've got to almost, we've got time.
Yeah, with like few seconds, he's waving at me.
You're getting waved at. Look, all I was going to say is you've got to learn to talk the talk and walk the walk, but never lose touch with what makes you a special individual.
And like Andy said to me, wear your big earrings.
Yes, whoever you are, do it.
Whoever you are, do it. So thank you, Andy. It's been so wonderful to have you today. If people want to get in contact with you, I know you're on LinkedIn and all social media. And
Andy West linked, yeah.
Andy West linked. Thank you for today. You've been locked into the Power Hour on Revive FM, and we'll see you again, same time, same place next week.
The new NHS COVID-19 app immediately